Welcome to the first rainy episode of Tech on Ice. Uh, I'm looking forward to this one because uh, I want to talk a little bit about containers. And you're probably using containers not the most efficient way, or maybe not the best way. And let me get into why that is. So I do a lot of home networking, so I have a lot of uh, Docker containers running in my home network, doing miscellaneous things like managing my media, managing family photos, miscellaneous things that I mess around with. I have like a home lab source of that. And the one thing that I've started to notice, because initially I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna grab these RAM Docker images from Docker Hub and pull them and do whatever. And I ran into an issue a couple weeks ago where this Docker image that I was getting, it just stopped working the way I wanted it to. Like it started crashing occasionally, whatever. Come to find out, I actually pulled down the Docker file and took a look at the actual Docker file for the image, and there was so much stuff in there that wasn't needed. Like I needed just a couple of simple things, but just a bunch of random I think it was like developer tools sort of software. So while the person was doing testing of their image, they had to install some tools locally on the container to kind of do some testing, and those weren't removed. And the moral of the story that I found out is like, don't trust random images that are on Docker Hub because they probably have a bunch of stuff in there you don't want. What I've started to do recently is I will go out to Docker Hub, I'll take a look at images that I might want to use, and I'll look at the Docker file, and then I'll create my own personal Docker files and create images locally in my own network that meet the same goal, but specific to my use case. And maybe I'll do some things like I'll add some staged builds. We'll talk about like building images in a second. And what I've noticed is that instead of being 100% dependent on somebody else's work, I now own my own work as well. I'm responsible for the work that I do from the building images and then a composing images, same for creating images. Um, so like that's my little tip, right? It's like, you know, just don't blindly trust Docker containers. Also, like, things as simple as like, when you're building images, like take advantage of some of the great things that, Docker files or image definition files give you, like stage builds, being able to um, pick like specific images you want to base from. Like the amount of Docker images that I see that are like, oh, we're just going to use Ubuntu as like the Linux environment. Like, do you really need it? Like, you might need you might be able to do with Alpine or something else that's something somewhere smaller, gives you less attack surface, right? I think that's kind of the big thing too, is like really understand what the environment is that your app or whatever you're going to host in that container is actually doing and what it needs. Do you need a UI? Like I've seen like a lot of images that just like have like the full-blown version of Ubuntu when they're just like a command line based tool. Why would you do that? Like I think again, it's just people who are just blindly building images and they're building it for their own specific use case and they publish them and then get some traction, whatever. You see this less so with like commercialized images that like large companies use, but I do think it's funny because we've gone down this path of like, okay, everyone has to use containers because if not, like, why would you ever like have a full blown version of an OS that you have an app hosted on? But like we skipped like this very specific step, in my opinion. We did like the education as to why the containers are important, and then we got to the point it's like, okay, this is how you create containers. But we really didn't go over like, okay, this is how you create an image definition that is going to be optimized for your use case. I feel like that's missed a lot in the industry. Not to say that there's not some good documentation or good blogs or whatever or content out there, but I think that it's missed by a predominant large majority of people that just like I need a web server so I can host a Node app or an Express app or host a .NET app on. Um, People will tend to, and this is something I love about developers, but also hate about developers, we're lazy, right? So we will, if we find something that is pretty darn close to what we want, we'll probably use it without really thinking. And I'm saying that for containers specifically, because you're trusting like an entire environment built by someone, you have to trust it. Like you have to kind of do your due diligence. Um, So that's my little mini thing. Like, you're probably not doing containers the right way. Be sure to comment down below if you've seen some really bad container images that folks have used. Also, be sure to like and follow and share with your friends. Hopefully it'll dry out. I don't know how I'm going to get out of here without getting even more soap wet. Funny, you're in a tub, but anyway. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.